one for the Australian, and there were many who said he would never race at this level again. But at least memories of a great career will help his return. In 1981, Anderson became the first Australian to wear the yellow jersey. He finished 10th. He did it again in 1982, and this time he finished 5th. So 1983 was supposed to be his year, but he was reduced to the role of domestique for the popular Frenchman Pascal Simon. Victim of injuries and politics, he's hoping now to make his return. Anderson's 29, and time is running out. All of France is hoping for a return to form of Laurent Fignon this month. Like Anderson, Fignon has suffered a serious setback to his career. He's fought against a damaged Achilles tendon throughout 1985 after withdrawing from the Tour de France. Then in 1986, a broken collarbone was another setback. But this year, he has shown signs of full recovery, and the 26-year-old Parisian finished 3rd in the Tour of Spain. To win the race in his own back garden at Paris. He did it in 1983 and 84. But after 2 such wins, he was to become another Tour statistic. Last year, he struggled behind the rest in the Pyrenees. He abandoned the race, saying he was sick. This year, Fignon will need the valued support of top team manager Cyril Guimard. But it's Fignon now who hopes to turn a corner and see his career go back to the top. Anderson completes his time trial, and it has clearly hurt the Australian. He's also failed by just 23 seconds to match Piers second. Hamilton's turn to enter the start house. While on the other side of the road, Laurent Fignon approaches the line. With the confidence drawn from last week's victory in the Tour of Switzerland, Hampson makes ready. While Fignon's effort is almost over. But his time, 27 seconds behind, is not so good. To a cheer, Hampson launches into the race. After Greg LeMond gave the United States a first ever victory last year, Hampson carries a great responsibility this time in LeMond's enforced absence. The 26 years old from North Dakota has had a meteoric rise to fame after winning the Tour of Switzerland for the first time last year. Hampson is now on the American 7-11 team. But in last year's Tour de France, he was alongside Greg LeMond on the same French La Vie Claire squad. Hampson possesses the most wanted talent of all the ability to climb mountains and fast. He helped pave the way for Greg LeMond to win the Tour last year when he paced him in the Pyrenees, where LeMond moved to within 40 seconds behind the leader, Bernard Hinault. Finished 4th and won the white jersey of best newcomer in last year's Tour. But he became a star in his own right last week when he won the Tour of Switzerland for a second time. Hampson's aim this year is to be the first American to win on an American team. But at the finish, there's about to be a new leader, as prologue specialist Jelle Nijden from Holland sets the best time, and this will be his 4th prologue victory of the season. Hampson comes home with one of the best times of the top contenders for final victory. He's not really a time trial specialist, and he's anxious to prove to his opponents and himself he has the all-round talent to win the Tour. But his time this time is 20 seconds behind Nijden. The performances by Nijden, however, will not concern Hampson because he can't climb well enough to win the Tour. But Stephen Roach certainly can, and he aims to win the prologue. Roach turned professional in 1981 and won 10 major races. But since his third place in the Tour de France 2 years ago, he too has suffered setbacks through injury. But in Roach's case, no one doubts that he has fully returned to his best condition. But Roach is an Irishman now on an Italian team. Yet, last month he became the first Irishman to win the Tour of Italy, a race only 300 miles shorter than the Tour de France. And he did it despite aggression from his own team. 2 years ago, Roach heard all as Greg LeMond, an American on a French team, was ordered not to win the Tour de France and wait for Bernard Hinault, who was falling behind. Perhaps Roach learned then to look after number one. The start house is Jean-Francois Bernard, France's young rising star. But when the French look in the start house, they don't see Jean-Francois Bernard. They still see Bernard Hinault. Bernard finished 12th last year and admits he has still a lot to learn, and all France will watch his mistakes. Roach won the Tour of Italy in spite of hostility against him, but now with a rare double in sight he makes an almost perfect start and narrowly fails to take the lead in this opening time trial. Just Jean-Francois Bernard to finish, and his entourage, of course. Roach has made a supreme effort. There's nothing hurts more than the race of truth, and the clock never lies. Now it's Bernard's turn to finish, and the Frenchman has not disgraced himself. And in a last burst to the line, the Frenchman's time is only 9 seconds behind Neidham, who wins in his third Tour de France, his first ever stage of the race. Lech Piasecki of Poland was second. And of the stars, Bernard didn't do too badly, but Andy Hampsten was only 20 seconds behind, Ron Kiefel 21. So, as the crowd gathers round to see the first yellow jersey of 1987 presented, a special star appears. Rather overweight, perhaps, but Bernard Hinault is still here. We'll be right back after this break.
When you think of Berlin, you probably think of a bustling metropolis. But Berlin is also a city of rivers, lakes, and canals, and parks where families can play. Berlin is also a city rich in history. This year they celebrate their 750th birthday. In Europe, Berlin is a mecca for young artists, and a masterpiece just might be found painted on the sidewalk. There are elegant Baroque buildings reminiscent of another time when German royalty ruled the land. Very few of these buildings remain today. Most were lost in the war. West Berlin is what you might call an economic miracle. At least that's what they called it back in the 60s and the 50s when these buildings were constructed. And this is East Berlin. The wall built in 1962 still divides East and West, and reminds us of those who tried to cross that wall. Berlin has its monument to peace, but its history is one of being torn apart by war. Adolf Hitler used the 1936 Olympics as a propaganda tool to fan the flames of war. In shambles by the ravages of the conflict. After the war was over, Berlin, isolated from the world, relied upon the airlift to feed its hungry people, its food supply cut off by a communist blockade. Just a few years later, Berlin was once again the battleground for the Cold War. The wall ego became a barrier separating ideologies and human beings.
And when one man is enslaved, all are not free. All free men, wherever they may live, are citizens of Berlin. And therefore, as a free man, I take pride in the words, Ich bin ein Berliner.
At the site where John F. Kennedy spoke those famous words over 2 decades ago, the riders will finish their races today. Meantime, the first road race of the Tour de France starts with the 207 riders assembling in front of the Reichstag building, Hitler's headquarters during the war. It's a perfect morning in July.
Berlin is the farthest start point in the race's history, and after the opening prologue, the riders faced a short 65 miles road race inside West Berlin last Thursday. The route followed a counterclockwise direction after starting from outside the Reichstag building near the wall. And the yellow jersey is everyone's target, and the man wearing it this morning is yesterday's prologue winner, Jelle Neidem, who is defending a tenuous 3 seconds lead. There are no hills to test the riders, but the chance of $3,000 for the daily stage win, or even capturing the yellow jersey, that could be the rewards. Stephen Roach is ready for battle with a crash helmet on. He's probably more interested in keeping out of trouble on an always tense opening day. Frenchman Laurent Fignon, a man who may be tense for other reasons. His poor time in the prologue didn't place him close enough on time to the yellow jersey, and he seems annoyed. Young American hope Andy Hampsten has settled in quickly, and with youthful enthusiasm perhaps, he keeps up a patrol of the pack, which is considerable now in size. The high speed soon projects the candidates for victory, and a group of 8 men escape the attention of the pack. For a while at least, an alliance between rivals is formed. The Berliners watch the pack race by, and they're over a minute now behind the leaders. The man with most to gain in this escape is Lech Piasecki. How ironic that a Polish rider was leading the attack in the shadow of the Berlin Wall. With 3 miles to go, Piasecki has the chance to become the first ever Eastern Bloc leader in the history of the Tour, and he wasn't going to let it go now. The pack is closing fast, but on this short stage, time is running out. Piasecki expects no help from the rest as they leave him to work hard to try and keep ahead. He needs just a 3 seconds advantage over the pack to make this historic lead. The tense feelings in the beginning prove justified as the field begin to fold like a pack of cards. Among the fallers but unhurt is Laurent Fignon, but he's quickly up and away. Even on the easiest of stages, these are the real dangers to potential Tour winners. The race is not particular when it chooses its victims. And for the Italian Alfonso Giuliani, his tour lasted precisely 90 minutes. He's forced out with a broken collarbone. Ironically, up front, it's Giuliani's teammate who tries to win the stage. But right on the line and watch the left, it's Nico Verhoeven who gives Holland another victory. Piasecki is 6th, giving him the best overall time and an historic yellow jersey.
So the Tour has its first road race winner, a sparkling performance by Lech Piasecki. And isn't it ironic that the Tour was held in Berlin with the hope of cracking the Eastern Bloc to allow their riders to come to the West? East Germany and the Soviet Union declined, and now a Polish rider wears the yellow jersey and is congratulated by the Prime Minister of France in West Berlin. So after stage one, here are the top 5 riders. Piasecki on top, but not by much. The Tour contenders are biding their time because later this day is the all-important team time trial, and relaxing before the race are the Americans in Europe.
The way we spend our summer.
This is our collegiate trip to Europe. Yesterday was Introduction to Pain 101. Today was Introduction to Nerves 102. This afternoon, Introduction to Speed. Who has it and who doesn't?
Don't go the outside, so make sure you stay the inside. It's a small island in this turn right here. Right here.
The Americans check the course before the start of the critical team time trial. This is a race where all 9 men ride together and share a common time at the finish. Weakness cannot be hidden. The faster riders will lose time if the slower ones cannot keep up. Andy Hampsten knows his fate is in the hands of his teammates. Their time is his time. A poor performance could ruin his chance of winning the yellow jersey later. Last year at this time, the 7-Eleven team was basking in the glow of the yellow jersey. Alex Steeda had shocked the cycling world by winning the second stage of the Tour 1 year ago today. That morning race had been the most important moment in cycling history for the Americans, and that afternoon, the riders were relaxed and happy as they rolled out of the Paris suburbs for their team time trial. Happy, that is, until disaster struck. Everything that could go wrong did go wrong. The 7-Eleven team came unglued, splintered into separate parts, each rider trying to survive the near total collapse. The defense of the yellow jersey was all but over. Not like the way it was with the well-oiled European racing machine sprinting in single file, each rider taking his turn at the front to break the wind, the group riding faster together than any single rider could alone. Steeda, exhausted from his all-out effort to get the yellow jersey only hours before, became an albatross around the neck of his team as they tried to pull him home. They suffered the embarrassment of being passed by a team starting 5 minutes behind. So as the first group of 6 riders crossed the finish line, the American team realized that last year's Tour de France was really over for them on the second day of racing. They had come within seconds of losing their last 3 riders, including Steeda, the trio just making the cutoff, which eliminates any rider finishing too far behind the leader. But things would change for these dejected athletes, and like the phoenix from the ashes, the American team has risen again.
It's going to be an American team out there that isn't just going to be this picture of struggle and you know, hanging on to survive. You know, we got to be up there. We got to be dealing the cards this year. We got to be doing stuff in the race. And you know, maybe that sounds boastful, but we have to do it. I mean, we don't have a guy like Andy Hampsten on this team to not do that. And we're not going to leave him high and dry. There's too much talent, too much motivation, and too much to lose. Like, Bob, the one thing you can't do is stand up on the front because you accelerate without really realizing it. And when you went over that last hill, you just about...
Determined not to relive last year's nightmare, the American team stayed in California during the European racing season to work on the coordination and teamwork needed to battle their foreign adversaries. Working together at home was a risk because it kept them 6,000 miles away from the people they would face in the Tour de France.
So the thing is, just go as smooth as we were going, but just a little bit faster.
All right.
Total relax.
So we'll do one more big lap and then come back here and stop again, and then we'll see about doing maybe a lap or two on a 5-mile circuit.
Budget almost double that of last year, and propelled by a newly acquired $200,000 a year star in Andy Hampsten, 7-Eleven had stepped into the big time of professional cycling. The skills of the team time trial practiced on the back roads and rolling hills of Southern California might make the difference in Andy Hampsten getting the yellow jersey or not having a chance. Will soon be tested here in Berlin on the second day of the Tour de France. Tested against the likes of Laurent Fignon and his System U team, the same team which used their high-tech attack to destroy the Americans last year. Fignon talks with his coach, Cyril Guimard, a man who coached the last 3 Tour champions. The System U riders almost cocky, knowing they are one of the strong favorites in the team time trial. Their star Fignon searches for the power to lead his teammates against the stopwatch. While another team captain gets ready in his own way, Andy Hampsten hoping the lessons learned in California will pay off here today in Berlin, and wondering if disaster will strike again. Fignon and his finely tuned racing machine are poised for their assault on the Col in a 25-mile course. It's System U and their rematch with the Americans when we come back.
So the moment of truth arrives for the 7-Eleven team. The memories of a year ago when they lost the yellow jersey, still a nightmare they hope will never be relived.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, stop!
But first, it was last year's winners, the System U team, who set off along the Schlussstrasse. They are soon into formation. After a rest of only 3 hours from the road race, the route this time was a loop of 25 miles to bring the riders back to the same finish.
If we make a mistake, we can make a big mistake here. So if we make a mistake, this will be a big one, but we're not going to. So the better we do, the less danger there will be in the race.
Last year, it was the System U team who demonstrated to the rookie 7-Eleven squad how to ride the most technically difficult stage of the Tour de France. Then they finished with a time 6 minutes faster, and the 7-Eleven team were all but last. This time, the 7-Eleven riders had other ideas, and they quickly fell into formation at the start. Lesson number 1, 3 straight A's. If you do it right, in team time trialing, each rider sets the pace at the front for about 50 yards or so, and then he falls gently back into a drafting position. With the 7-Eleven team, lesson number 2, straight A's again. The 7-Eleven team were moving as a single unit, and if you want to succeed on this stage, this is what you really must do. At the 10 kilometers check, the System U team were ahead, but by seconds now, not minutes. Riding as smooth as silk at an average speed of 31 miles an hour, the 7-Elevens were gaining confidence with every turn of the pedals. Roach's Carrera team, the last to start, were fastest at all the checkpoints, and Roach, with the confidence every leader should have in his team, was content to just play his turn when it came. team is taken on the 5th rider to finish. So this way, the strong men often have to wait for the weaker ones. This is truly a team event, and the one the team leader fears most. Hampton has no such fears with his American team. The 711s are doing just fine. Phil Anderson and his Panasonic team used to win every team time trial in the Tour de France in the 1970s, but now they force the pace just to limit their losses. When the System U came to the line, the winners last year were on course again for the top spot. They sprinted over the line with the best time for the 25 miles to take the lead. Charlie Motte, the little Frenchman with the big heart, was tired, thirsty, but reasonably happy. The 711 team were now a lethal machine in full flight. No weak men, and that makes a real team. Toshiba, the team that Andy Hampton left this season, didn't seem to be faring any better, or indeed much worse. And one American boy's dream of bringing his own American team to the Tour de France was becoming stylish reality. Roach's Carrera team still were dictating the race pattern and posting the best intermediate times, and they even looked to be going quicker. But at the finish, 711 headed down the home straight, looking like the professional team they had now become. Sprinting for the line, the team finished with a time only 45 seconds slower than the System U team, and for the moment, the second best time. Not far from the finish, the Carrera team was setting an unbeatable pace and would win the stage. But this day was a triumph too for the 711 team, who really joined the elite.
God, I think we made up for last year. Oh man, that was a really good effort. Nobody's gonna make fun of us now. No way. No way.
And at the end of a long day, Lech Piasecki keeps his yellow jersey. The Pole, though, having to share the day's honours with the Carrera team. And Stephen Roach, who is prepared to wait for the chance he hopes lies ahead.
The whole team's together. We're thinking about, we're going to unleash in the last week. That's still 3,000 kilometers away.
But keep it more steady instead of win and then get last. Try to keep it smoother in the first couple weeks. Eliminate that roller coaster.
And then start winning.
And then at the last week, start swooping and do.
For Lech Piasecki of Poland, an historic day came to an end. He led by 13 seconds. And of the other stars, it really was a story of Andy Hampton of the United States, who minimized his losses and was in real contention now. Tour de France is a happening that has no equal in the world. After all, who would want to buy a bike you can't even ride? Or queue up at 7 o'clock in the morning? Even get dressed up in the finest of clothes just to receive a flag from 3 overweight gentlemen who never speak to anyone. And there's the star, Lech Piasecki, a Polish man in Germany riding the Tour de France who speaks Italian. And he may wonder why an Irishman called Roach is getting more attention than he does. After all, Roach doesn't have the yellow jersey, but he does speak French. And for Andy Hampton, well, he's the highest paid American. He's even paid to wear the sunglasses. But it's quite a different story for Piasecki.
In order for me to ride the Tour, my sponsor Colnago had to give the Polish Cycling Federation 60 bicycles.
Now then, let's see. Where exactly are we?
It's between these two cows, I guess. Because here's Nord.
You go from Eppingen to Kleingard. See there, East Kleingard it says?
Uh-huh.
And then you go, this is...
But for the riders, it's easy. You just follow the arrows. And life in the pack is not always spent with your nose just above the front tyre. Life can be quite fun early on. It almost makes you wish you were riding, doesn't it? Jeff Pierce shows his new style of headgear as he thinks of the 137 miles between Karlsruhe and Stuttgart. It's going to be quite a day. In the Tour de France, there's always those who can't stop trying to lead the race. And halfway through the day, 22 men take a lead. In this game of tactics, mistakes can and are made. And although 7-Eleven's Dag Otto Lauritsen is here, the presence of danger men like Eric Mackler from the Carrera team and the Frenchman Charlie Motte should be ringing warning bells. Even Phil Anderson, he's not here just for the ride. The speeding group work well together and rapidly gain time. And the blackboard man commuting between leaders and pack indicates they lead by 2 minutes 20 seconds. But in the last 9 miles, the leaders split on the hills around Stuttgart, and Mackler, in his 5th Tour de France, is looking to win his first leader's yellow jersey as he speeds away with Arcacio da Silva of Portugal. The rest of the front group now trail the two by 30 seconds, but that's nothing compared with the 6 minutes that left Piasecki the leader, and the rest are now behind. Piasecki has lost out to teamwork, and there's no one here in the pack willing to pick up the pace. This was a strategy planned by the Carrera team. Mackler started the day in 4th place, 20 seconds behind, the ideal man, of course, to head an attack for the lead. Da Silva was more concerned with the stage victory. This way, both have something to show for the day's work. The chasers kept going, but they knew that this day belonged to the two in front. And hidden among the motorcycles, Mackler keeps up the pressure towards his yellow goal. All of Stuttgart were out to see the first visit of the Tour, and the result was turning out to be quite a surprise. Finish, Da Silva wins his first ever stage. It appeared that in return for help in the pacemaking, Mackler was happy to see him take it. The next group arrived almost a minute later. So, for the third day, an unlikely name was in the yellow jersey. And for the first time since 1952, a Swiss rider was in front. Mackler had almost 6 minutes. And behind, the race favourites had made their first real mistake. Time will tell just how serious. Mackler is first, but the real dark horse to win the race overall is Frenchman Charlie Motte, who is now 5th. And among the favourites, all have lost time, but they are still close to each other. But are they worried about the gap?
For the moment, it concerns me just about. But if any more riders get away like yesterday, or if any of the riders that were away yesterday get away again, then it concerns even more.
System U made out pretty well with Motte and Matteo being up there. Motte might be dangerous later, but I'm not real worried.
And this afternoon, in wonderfully sunny conditions, the Tour de France, after 4 racing days and 225 miles, finally came home. It crossed the borders between Germany and France. It was a day when Stephen Roach, you wouldn't forget yesterday, patrolled the pack to make sure no one else escaped. And for the yellow jersey of Eric Mackler, he was a captive. He never attacked all day. But the accidents go on. A mistake by someone, and they're all down once more. The whole field was glad to be back on the road to Strasbourg. And the Carrera team were on their best guard, thinking of keeping this man in yellow for a while yet. Andy Hampsten, on his best behaviour. Neither he nor anyone else attacked today.
So the Tour de France has entered its native land, where it will stay for the next 3 weeks. No change in the standings, really. Eric Mackler held on to the yellow jersey. With Andy Hampsten and his American team still very much in contention. Next Sunday, we'll be in the wine country of Bordeaux to bring you more of the greatest bike race on earth, the Tour de France. For Phil Liggett, I'm John Dockery.
And so the Tour de France is now what?
It's week 2 of the Tour de France, and the heat is on. It's anyone's race as Le Tour rolls into Bordeaux. And in the heat of battle, nerves are frayed and tempers flare. Wayne Thomas has also rolled into Bordeaux this week, and he brought with him from Detroit the WBC World Super Welterweight crown. World renowned for its great wines and the beautiful chateau where they are made. The American tourists are back this summer, enjoying the sights and tastes of La Belle France, and we are happy to be here to share some of those with you on this edition of CBS Sports Sunday. And it is wild here at the Marignac Sports Complex in Bordeaux. Bonjour et bienvenue à Bordeaux, France. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Tim Ryan here in a very noisy arena in Bordeaux, France, and we welcome you to the first of 3 CBS Sports Sundays we'll be bringing you from France, and the first of 2 championship bouts dedicated to the memory of the great French middleweight Marcel Cerdan, himself a world champion, who more than 40 years ago died in a plane crash en route to a title bout in the United States. Today, though, 2 Americans have come to France for a world championship bout, but even a world title fight can't get in the way when it comes time to eat. Over here, it may not be everyone's idea of haute cuisine, but they'll get out the grills and come up with something suitable for the occasion. But boxing is not the only event in Bordeaux today. This was the scene near the finish line hours ago in downtown Bordeaux, as the Tour de France ended its latest stage and capped off what has been an unpredictable and tumultuous week of racing.
Get out of the Tour de France. If you can't ride your bike on the road, carry it across a field. If your body can't take the strain, the Tour will provide a ride. Tempers are as hot as the blistering heat. Even the bikes of steel are cracking under the pressure. All for a chance just to touch the immortal yellow jersey. Tour last year with the European team, Hampsten is back with his American team to win the Tour de France. But Stephen Roach, the Irishman riding with an Italian team, is a favorite to wear the yellow jersey in Paris, and he is one of the best teams in cycling behind him. The French cycling machine System U, with their high-tech attack, is armed with a double-barreled assault with emerging star Charlie Motet. Also also threatening is two-time Tour champion Laurent Fignon. They have their own designs on the yellow jersey in a Tour still searching for a leader. For the 5th straight year, CBS Sports is proud to bring you the greatest bike race on earth. Welcome to the Tour de France. This intersection of D94 and D32 here in Yerres, France may seem insignificant to you folks, but it has a lot of meaning in this year's Tour de France because it's the only spot the riders will see more than once. When they come by 2 weeks from now, Paris and the coveted yellow jersey will only be about 20 miles away. But today when they come by, they'll still have 2,000 miles left on their journey, down through the wine country of Bordeaux, and then the perilous mountains, the Pyrenees and the Alps, and some of the toughest climbs on this planet. So before the glory of the Champs-Élysées, these riders will have to survive 2 weeks on their bicycles and a rigorous journey across France. A journey which began 2 weeks ago in Berlin, the most distant point ever for a Tour start. In the center of the city, the Tour began with the prologue time trial, a short sprint and the first chance for a rider to emerge from the pack. Of the stars, 27-year-old Stephen Roche would have the best time in this first of 26 races. The Irishman, now living in Paris, seems totally recovered from his knee surgery of last year. The Tour would spend 4 days in Germany before large crowds, most of whom had never seen the great race before. And ironically, a Polish cyclist would lead the race in this divided land. Lech Piasecki wore the yellow jersey, which goes to the rider with the best overall time. Easily the biggest early test for Andy Hampsten in 7-Eleven was a team time trial. 9 men against the clock, critical for a team leader like Hampsten, because a team time is his time. Last year, Laurent Fignon and his System U machine destroyed the Americans. Not so last week, when System U only beat 7-Eleven by seconds and not minutes. The American team had passed their first test against their more experienced European rivals and had done it with high marks. From Berlin, a short flight over East German territory to Karlsruhe, West Germany, then on to Stuttgart. It was here that Charlie Motet broke away from the stars, leaving them far behind. But the real story was Stephen Roche's teammate, Eric Mackler. His pursuit of the yellow jersey here would later haunt the Carrera team. As Eric Mackler headed to the finish line, his pursuers were still out on the streets of Stuttgart among the thousands of cheering crowds. And when it was over, it was Eric Mackler, the first Swiss rider in 30 years to wear the Golden Fleece. It was 1 week ago today that the Tour came home, crossing the border into France, where it would stay for 3 weeks. From Strasbourg, the rolling caravan continued west, through Champagne country and races we will highlight today. It passed just below Paris before turning south to Bordeaux and some of the finest vineyards in the world. Here the course is flat, the heat intense. Further south, and finally to the Pyrenees in the first mountains. The Pyrenees, a natural border between France and Spain. And as if the Pyrenees weren't enough, the Alps come next with some of the toughest climbs ever in the 74 years of the Tour de France. Finally, it's north to Paris, in the Champs-Élysées, where the winner will wear the yellow jersey. After riding for almost a month and 2,524 miles in 26 days. And the question this year, with Greg LeMond still in California recovering from his hunting accident, who will replace last year's champion as the best rider in the world? Will it be America's best hope, Andy Hampsten? He's already suffered a crash and is finding the Tour tough from the very start. Race favorite Stephen Roach has been spending his final moments before races in an ambulance trying to relieve some stubborn muscle spasms. Laurent Fignon, winner of the Tour in '83 and '84, has been recovering from serious injury the last few years. He seems to be slowed down by a nagging cold. One has to wonder if a healthy upstart can seize the opportunity to win, and Charlie Motet may be just the man to do it. An unusually tough early test may give us some answers when we come back.
There's no doubt that everybody who rides the Tour de France wants to wear the leader's yellow jersey, even if it's only for one day. And the sponsors of the team, too, demand this from the team because they want the publicity. Take this last week, for example. Eric Mackler of Switzerland has been leading for the Italian Carrera team. But he, they say, is not the rider who can win the Tour. And yet the team has spent an enormous amount of energy keeping him in yellow. And at the same time, Stephen Roach, the rider they believe can win the Tour, has had to defend when he should really be thinking of saving energy for the mountains of the Pyrenees and the Alps. It's quite true to say that the pressures on the individual rider are enormous, and some of them, you know, simply can't take it. Eric Mackler is the first Swiss rider to wear the leader's yellow jersey since 1953, and he intends to keep it for as long as possible. But this may be bad news for Ireland's Stephen Roach, who finds his Carrera team committed to help a man who in the end hasn't the all-round ability to win. How to dislodge Mackler is the question of the day, and plans are made. It's time for Frenchman Charlie Motet, the Tour's dark horse, to come out into the sun. There's also Laurent Fignon, twice a winner. But he's still searching for those halcyon days. Right now, appearances are more important. And there's Andy Hampsten, still seen as the next American winner of the Tour. The thought of the yellow jersey haunts him daily, but it doesn't always show. But on this warm morning, the Tour de France is about to deliver yet another surprise in this intriguing game of bluff. And Mexican Raul Alcala aims to become the name on everyone's lips. And that's because today's stage between Strasbourg and Epinal of 106 miles is mountainous for the first time, and Alcala is a climbing specialist. He joined the American 711 team last year, and he's the only Mexican rider ever to ride the Tour de France. It hasn't taken him long to become infected with Tour fever. The only cure is a yellow jersey. The 202 survivors of this 2,500 miles marathon are in buoyant mood this morning as they set off due west towards Epinal. After a week in Germany, the Tour has come home. Stage or even led the race. So once out of town, the pressure was applied. This was not going to be just another day in the Tour de France. Soon after the start, the attack started and the gaps began to open. Strasbourg, and already the day's pattern was taking shape, and it would be quite a day in the life of Mexican Raul Alcala. Andy Hampsten, back in the pack, was happy enough as his teammate from Mexico went off in search of regaining time he'd lost so far. Eric Mackler would need more than just water to keep him cool this day. The 10-men breakaway was heading for the slopes of the Vosges Mountains, and the early attack had surprised the slumbering main field. They will pay heavily for their error. Only 20 miles out, and the group is already 58 seconds in front. For some, there are more important things to worry about, like just keeping up with the pack. Christophe Levan is in the break. He's only 3 minutes 29 seconds behind the yellow jersey. Alcala is next best placed. He's 5 minutes 57 seconds back. It's too early for the man to think of victory. It's just time to keep cool. It's not unusual for the race to be under attack so soon, but there's plenty of time yet to straighten things out. Alcala wasn't up front to waste energy. He had no intention of losing the advantage the leaders had worked hard for. He's a climber, and the gentle hills of the Vosges suited his style. Behind, Alcala's 7-11 team have moved to the front with Christophe Levan's System U squad. The strategy was to discourage the pursuit and give the leaders as much time as possible to gain it. The Tour de France is not always easy, especially when no one is sure now who's calling the tune. Certain now that the attack is a serious attempt to take Mackla's yellow jersey, the Carrera team take up the chase, but no one else is willing to help. That's the penalty when you lead the Tour. Trapped in the field, Mackla has more than just thinking to do now. Alcala's second Tour de France, and he's on the 7-11 team to help Andy Hampston win the race. This is no double cross. It's better to have two men near the top than one. The bunch is mostly together as they approach the top of the first climb, but some were in desperate trouble at the back.
Far behind the pack, two riders from the newest of the 23 teams in this year's race, Graham Jones and Paul Watson, part of the first ever British team at the Tour de France. And on their very first climb, the British riders suffering 15 minutes behind the pack. This was a controversial journey for the British because many in England believed the British team for the Tour had been assembled in haste. But the British were determined to be here this year to commemorate the 20th anniversary of Tom Simpson's death. The great British cyclist died in the Alps during the '67 Tour. Even a friendly push wouldn't help Watson and Jones make it to next Sunday's memorial service on Mont Ventoux. They would become two more victims of the Tour de France.
So on the Tour de France's first full day on home soil, it's a Mexican, Raul Alcala, who is giving everyone food for thought. Riding like a veteran of many tours, the normally always smiling Alcala is in serious mood as he fuels up for the crucial miles that still lie ahead. His main rival for the leader's yellow jersey is young Frenchman Christophe Levan, forced to become a professional early because his parents couldn't afford to keep him at home. The biggest fear of Tour riders is to become hungry and see all the efforts wasted. Table manners have no place here. This has now become the greatest chase since the Tour began, or perhaps it should be called the greatest escape. The gap is now 5 minutes 34 seconds. This breakaway has never faltered, and after a steady start, the escape has developed into a battle between a Frenchman and a Mexican, and both want the yellow property of the Swiss rider, Eric Mackler. Now the alarm bells are ringing loudly, and the Carrera team are brought to the front to try and save the day. With no friends in the pack, the team begin to work hard to repair the damage. The son of an auto mechanic, Alcala was discovered in a local Mexican race, and he was imported to America to become a professional cyclist. The Carrera team continues to pull together, and Mackler himself is going to have to help if the yellow jersey is to hang on his bedpost tonight. Only Stephen Roach, the team leader, is not helping in pursuit. The gap is now 7 minutes 59 seconds. With such a lead, Levan is the new leader on the road, because he started the day only 3 minutes 29 seconds behind. Alcala is the next best placed. If he could slip Leven, he could lead the race. It's been a good day too for Andy Hampsten, because he's drafted along in the bunch, while the Carrera team has been forced to waste energy chasing down Hampsten's teammate. Roach doesn't seem too worried, but it may be Laurent Fignon, another possible Tour winner, who will be having the last lap. He knows it's Roach's teammates who are having to chase down one of his men up front. So this has become a nightmare day for the Carrera team. They feel the full responsibility of leading the race, and as time ticks away, the yellow jersey begins to look fallible. You have to wonder now why one team spends so much energy trying to keep the lead when it could cost Roach the race later. The final cards in this game have not yet been played. We'll be back.
Hello.
And so as the Tour de France snaked its way towards Epinal, the Carrera team had at last begun to close in. And this was the signal for Christophe Leven to go ahead of the leading group and bid for the yellow jersey. This was Raul Alcala's only mistake of the day. He should have marked Leven, then he wouldn't have had to chase so late. After a day of working together to beat the rest, two men now become bitter rivals. And the best pursuit in this year's Tour de France is on. Leven, 23 years old and never a stage winner nor holder of the Golden Fleece, is told his advantage over Alcala and the field. It's 47 seconds with the pack closing at 4:20. Alcala's also worried about the pursuit behind. He's in no man's land and needs all the encouragement he can get now from his team car. Alcala must now show the resistance over these final miles that makes the difference between the good and the great. But with the experience of 3 tours, Leven is also coached by Cyril Guimard, the best manager. Advantage Leven. The Carrera team are still all alone in pursuit. The lead is crumbling, but at what cost in the days to come? Mappa is now within seconds of saving his yellow jersey, when earlier the loss seemed inevitable. The Tour was at its most angry now. But on the first day of the Tour, on home ground, a Frenchman was fighting for the yellow jersey. What could be better? This was certainly Leven's finest moment. Alcala continues to chase. The Mexican star was shining brightly. He was still set to finish second. But the Carrera team had closed the gaps, and neither Alcala nor Leven will be in yellow tonight. The Italian team had won the day, but what a pursuit. Then, on the narrow roads approaching the finish, the field crashed. The followers were paying the price for not helping the Carreras. Even Andy Hampsten was down, but unhurt. The delay, however, helped Leven keep up his escape, and Alcala kept his lead for second place. Hampsten fell into a ditch and wrecked his bike and had to look to his nearest teammate, who happened to be Davis Finney. He took Finney's bike, leaving him to take a wheel and rejoin later. Teamwork takes strange turns in the Tour. And now it's Finney's job to catch up, if he can. Hampsten safely ahead. Finney's left to pick up the pieces. At the finish, there's a great cheer for Christophe Leven, who wins his first ever stage of the Tour de France. Behind, the Carrera team still head the reassembled pack. They're heading for home now. The team has saved the day for the man in yellow. Alcala never caught Leven, but he showed the tenacity of a great fighter by staying ahead of the rest for second place. It's a performance that will prove to Hampsten he now has a strong ally. When the pack arrived, the Carrera team had excelled, and the pursuit, which lasted all day without help from anyone, had paid off. The Tour had also found itself another name too, Raul Alcala. It'll be fiesta time in Epinal tonight. So at the end of day 6, Leven failed by just 36 seconds to take the yellow jersey from Eric Mackler. And for the moment, the real stars keep their back seat, while Hampsten recalls the crash.
It happened real fast, but boy, a lot of people went down. When I got up, I was pretty confused just from tumbling around at 30 miles an hour, and I couldn't find my bike, and it was, I was kind of in a panic to get going again. But Davis Finney was right there, so he gave me his bike and shoved me on the way. And then Jeff Bradley brought me halfway up the pack, and Jeff Pierce brought me all the way to the front. Once I got there, Boyer kind of nursed me all the way in.
While Hampsten and his 7-Eleven teammates were working to survive crashes, the Carrera boys were loose and happy to have one of their own, Eric Mackler, with the yellow jersey. But what does their star, Stephen Roach, think about having to lead this early in the Tour?
For me, it will backfire, but then I'm not the boss.
But you'd unload it if you could?
Oh, definitely. Not so much to unload it, but it's because a lot of other teams are just sitting in the wheels doing nothing, and they will ride to the mountains like this in an armchair, and then in the mountains they will not even say thank you.
Oh, yeah?
The reward at the end of a long day of riding takes place here on the massage table with a soothing rub. A job performed only by men up until last year. 23-year-old April Wilburn is now one of 3 women trainers, or what is called a soigneur for a professional cycling team. Part of her daily routine is to massage the aching bodies of the riders. And as you might well imagine, the question of a female trainer working with male athletes raises some eyebrows. But this is 1987, and the Tour has changed.
A body is just a body. It's not like you're lusting over these guys. You know, like my friends, they say, God, you're working around all these guys all the time. How can you handle it? But that's when you know you're an amateur and when you're a professional. You know, when you work professionally, it doesn't really faze you too much.
Here is the original female soigneur, American Shelley Versus.
Instant replay. The new instant.
Worked for 7-Eleven. Now she is the first woman working with a European team. Shelley knows well the difficulties of being the first woman in a men's sport in Europe.
I know. Well, with the 7-Eleven boys, they were all American. It was totally natural for me to deal. Title IX, equal rights, a woman massaging a guy was no problem. But when I came to Toshiba, all these boys are foreign, except for Greg and Steve Bauer. They didn't speak English. All of a sudden, this chick comes along, American, to massage them. And they weren't sure whether to leave their underwear on, take it off, what was their wives going to say. It was a problem with the mechanics of my team, because usually the soigneur room's with a mechanic. But the mechanic's wives didn't want me to room with them, so I have a single room all the time. That was kind of difficult, you know.
A day in the life of a soigneur begins at dawn, hours before the riders wake up. Preparing the food and drink for the riders takes some doing. Each day, a team consumes 20 gallons of drinks, 50 sandwiches, 20 packs of dried fruits, and 60 pounds of fresh fruit, all the while making sure each rider has his own special menu for his day on wheels. Then it's time to wake up the team, far better than any alarm clock I've ever seen. Because of the physical exertion involved, racing teams only once considered men capable of doing this job. First, the cooler goes in the trunk. And then a truckload of luggage. Remember, it's 9 riders on a team in a different hotel every night for 26 nights. And all this has to be done even before they get to the race start, where more work awaits, the little last-minute race preparations and the like. There are other women in unlikely places on the Tour de France, and the number, as well as the acceptance of women, is growing each year. The riders seem to like it, and the race organizers are beginning to embrace the change. Only 4 years ago, women had to hide their hair under baseball caps to disguise themselves while riding in the caravan.
Not only there were no women, but they were forbidden. I mean, when a woman was seen in a car, it was a very strong misdemeanor. I mean, it was seen as a big breach of the rules. But now women are very important. As you see that we have a masseurs with the 7-Eleven team, and we'll see more and more of them. I think they are good sport, they are good fun, and they are good friends, and that's fine.
The barriers for women are disappearing in the Tour de France, and this is only the beginning of a new era in a race set aside by its tradition. It's day 10 of the Tour, and the race today starts in a most unlikely spot, an equestrian arena in the town of Saumur, for this all-important race. Today's individual time trial is the first real test of this year's race. For a rider to even dream of winning the Tour de France, he has to do well here. Now, for the pure climbers, well, they'll be trying not to lose time before getting to their specialty next week in the Pyrenees and the Alps. For the other riders, they'll be trying to put distance between themselves and those who excel in the mountains. But one thing is abundantly clear here today. The standings will change, and the favorites for this year's Tour de France will step forward. One of those stars expected to emerge is Sean Kelly, the #1 rider in the world, but he's not fully recovered from a recent illness. Andy Hampsten is still being talked about as a possible Tour winner, but he's never been on a 55-mile time trial before. The normally affable Stephen Roach knows today is serious business, but the importance of the time trial has even him edgy.
I'll have to wait and see you.
Feeling good?
If I get to the last 20 kilometers and I have nothing, like a lot of people will be today, it'll be all over. So I'll try to avoid a disaster and do a real good time.
The first of today's favorites, Sean Kelly, is in the start house and ready to go.
And Kelly, like everyone else who are pretenders to the title, now face the most important day so far. This is the longest time trial since 1951. The next 55 miles for Andy Hampsten will be the most crucial of his career. Kelly is the first to leave among the fancied riders. While in the start house, Hampsten fills up with air. He'll need plenty today. Each rider starts after an interval between of 2 minutes. The last man overall goes first, and the leader of the race goes last. And behind Andy Hampsten, Stephen Roach awaits the signal. Sean Kelly fights to find his rhythm. He already appears to be struggling. Carrying all the American hopes for victory, quickly settles on his aerodynamic bike. These early miles tell a rider straight away how his body will react to the steady punishment of the race against the clock. But Stephen Roach is a time trial specialist. He is out to impress. This is his big chance. Kelly, his eyes fixed on the road ahead, concentrates hard, trying to shut out the pain of effort as he passes a slower rider who started 2 minutes in front. In the start house is Charlie Motte, France's hope, now Bernard Hinault has retired. Hampsten is really a climber, but he can only hope here to limit his losses to men like Roach. Roach hopes to play his first trump card, but the time trial demands so much from a confused body, and Roach is hoping today it will come right. He moves past a teammate, showing why he is the chosen leader of the team. Holding a constant speed of 28 miles per hour is the ability of only a few. One of those is Roach. Charlie Motte is also underway now. He too, like Roach, relishes the time trial. And 2 years ago, he won France's biggest, the Grand Prix de Nation. Kelly continues up ahead, still searching for comfort. He is not riding well on a hilly course that should have suited him. And Motte, racing through a corridor of noise, knows the cheers are all for him. Ploughing his own lonely furrow, Hampsten is losing 4 minutes to Roach, and that's not good. While for Kelly, it can't be over too soon. Hampsten continues with the anxious glance at his watch, showing his concern. Roach is the giant of the time trial, and the time check showing to be ahead at all checkpoints. The longest time trial ever for Andy Hampsten is almost over, and every second counts as he fights for the line. His time of 2 hours, 4 minutes and 31 seconds is not a great time for a top contender. Hampsten's dug himself a hole he's going to literally have to climb out of in the mountains next week. But for the Irishman Stephen Roach, this was the moment of truth for him, and he hadn't told any lies. He'd excelled to his limits. His excellent time of 1 hour and 58 minutes and 11 seconds was the fastest time of the day. But at what cost to the Irishman? This had been the biggest effort ever for Stephen Roach in a time trial. With this time, Roach had climbed out of the anonymity of the field and up towards the leaders. But it had left its scars, and not just on Stephen Roach. The heat is getting worse and the race is getting harder, but today's been the hardest so far. Robert Miller, he performed far above his hopes. Now he waits for the mountains. But there are others who may never see them. Certainly Stephen Roach will. Today he'll remember for a long time. And what of Eric Mackler? He's worn the jersey for a week. Now it's gone. And Raul Alcala, forced to show that courage again after a serious crash that cut his eye and broke his finger. Only Charlie Motte had challenged Roach's time midway, and with a desperate sprint to the line, the Frenchman finished just 42 seconds slower. He's no longer a dark horse for final honours, but a real favourite now. Motte started the day a minute 36 seconds behind the yellow jersey of Eric Mackler. The Swiss finally succumbed to the race of truth, and after 6 days in yellow, Charlie Motte became the new man in the hot seat. So after stage 10, Motte is now the leader, and Roach is making his bid. Hampsten still has a lot of work to do.
I'm pretty concerned, just because if I'm climbing really well, I'll be able to make up for it, but I don't like losing time in the first place, so it's not a good situation.
It has been an arena for champions to earn their first taste of international glory. The Pan American Games this August on CBS Sports.
Yesterday, the race entered the beautiful chateau countryside of Limoges. And early on, as the field raced the 159 miles from Poitiers to Charmey, a group of 10 escaped to pose more problems for the overall leaders. The ever-changing face of this race was again producing an unusual pattern. The lead group worked hard, building a lead of 9 minutes as the Limousin hills began to wear down the field, tired from yesterday's time trial that had put Charlie Motte in the leader's yellow jersey. But this was different now. Whereas Carrera chased everyone down this week, the System U team of Motte slowed the chase so that their team man up front, Marshal Guéant, could gain time. It was to be another demonstration by System U of team strategy. Everybody watched Motte, so Guéant took the initiative. The field were resigned to lose time, and the 7-11 team were also below par for the first time. Hampsten drank at the back when perhaps he should have been at the front. And on this day, Jeff Bradley was being urged just to finish by teammate Ron Peoples. Raul Alcala also faced rehabilitation from Friday's crash in the time trial. Fortunes changed quickly in the Tour, but none quicker than for this man, Marshall Guéant, who left the 10 leaders to win alone and take the overall lead away from his teammate, Charlie Motte. What a race this is turning out to be. But for some, it was all over. The opening 10 days has told on people like Bruno Wojciech, a Frenchman who no longer will contest the sprint finishes he specialises in. His body cries enough, suffering from a back problem, and there's nothing you can do or say to help. And further ahead, Jeff Bradley and Bob Roll are also cast adrift, left to suffer in the desert conditions as they fall over half an hour behind. They suffer from sickness. What a difference a week makes in the Tour. The Tour de France is a heartless creature that provides every obstacle possible to man's success. In this hostile world, Bradley waits for Bob Roll, normally the strength of the 7-11 team. Now there's nothing to do but to go on. Bob Roll is ill, and there's no answer to that. Bob Roll was 7-11's highest finisher last year in the team's first Tour, and he carried Andy Hampsten to victory in the Tour of Switzerland this year. For Bob Roll, it really shouldn't have to be this way. Like a waiting vulture, the broom wagon is ready for the moment no rider hopes will arrive. Finally, Roll abandons the Tour de France. Bradley joins him. For both of them now, the pain is over, but the memories will remain. At the finish, it's a happy smiling face of Marshall Guéant. But for the 7-11 team, it's a moment of despair.
It's a death march. Today's the first day of it.
And the march continues tomorrow into the Pyrenees, where the mountain passes hold the answers to the next chapter of a race with no obvious leader. What chances now for Andy Hampsten? Now his team is down to 7.
I don't know, I hate to complain, but everything's coming apart.
Today's long stage through the vineyards of western France over 145 miles from Brive-la-Gaillarde to Bordeaux should have been a routine outing the day before the Pyrenees. Leading climber Raul Alcala came up alongside Stephen Roach to keep an eye on him on behalf of Andy Hampsten, his teammate. And a day too for Marshall Guéant to show off his new yellow jersey. But further back in the pack, Sean Kelly, the Irishman who is a serious challenger for this year's Tour, was showing the signs of injury after a fall during the first 45 miles. Kelly remounted in the race, and he pedalled back to the bunch, where he stayed for some 12 miles. But then the pain from an injured shoulder, which is being diagnosed this evening as torn ligaments, started to prove just too much. Kelly was a real favourite for this year's Tour de France, and he refuses to give in. But as the road started to climb, he could not grip the handlebars, and the pain continued. Again, his team manager came alongside and asked him to stop. Sean Kelly's face says what everybody else was fearing. The damage to his shoulder is very, very serious indeed. Kelly is now 31. He's the world-ranked #1 cyclist, and if he retired next year, he'd still be there because he's gained so many points in the world's top races. He's finished 4th and 5th in the Tour de France before, but his great ambition has been to win it. And here he's now stopped by the roadside. And Sean Kelly is forced to abandon the 1987 Tour de France, the first real casualty among the top contenders for victory.
You're right, Sean. You're right, boy. You're right, Sean. You're right, Sean. You're right. You'll be all right, Sean. You'll be all right, man.
Meanwhile, up ahead in the race, Davis Phinney was to become the first American to win a stage in this year's Tour de France. Avoiding the crash, Davis Phinney won it in a sprint to the finish line in Bordeaux ahead of all rivals. And Davis Phinney, a bright moment in an otherwise dismal week for the American team. So as you look at the list of Tour contenders, I'll remind you that we'll be in the Pyrenees to bring you all of the best racing from the Tour de France next Sunday. Until then, from Bordeaux, for Phil Liggett, I'm John Dockery.
Right now, it's about 11 o'clock at night here.
The Tour de France is careening toward its most dangerous and decisive moment. For America's Andy Hampsten, this is the chance to seize control of a race that has already humbled some of the world's greatest athletes. Some of the fans of French cycliste Charlie Motet saying he's going to win the Tour de France. We are 6,000 feet up on Mont Ventoux. They are going to have a time trial climbing up this mountain today. And John Dockery, watching them do this earlier in the week down at Luz Ardidon, was just absolutely unbelievable to me to see them make that climb and be hardly breathing heavily when they got to the top.
Tim, the thing that amazes me most as an athlete about this event is that the mental and physical toughness that's required to ride 2,500 miles. Think about that, 2,500 miles in 26 days across France. That's getting up day in and day out after struggling over mountaintops like this and being able to do it. It is just incredible to watch.
The spectacle is really awesome. To see the number of spectators lining the roads here, you can relate to a Super Bowl, perhaps 80, 100,000 people all packed in on one Sunday afternoon. This runs for a month and thousands more.
It's like a Super Bowl almost every day. There are 55 million people in France. About half of those folks will come out on the road to catch a glimpse, maybe 15 seconds of a rider flying by, and they come out, you know, hours in advance, some of them camping overnight. So it is really a traveling road show and a spectacle like none I've ever seen before.
They're talking about somewhere between 100 and 200,000 people lining the route here today. Well, from here, of course, they'll head into the Alps.
The Alps will really tell. We have 4 stages in the Alps before getting to the Champs-Élysées and the finish in Paris. And that's the place where the men worthy of wearing the yellow jersey will come forward.
Well, that's quite a spectacular view, is it not? And what a stage that was today up Mont Ventoux. It's a memorable experience for both me and for John Dockery to be there and see some of that. Today's stage was expected to be a turning point in this year's wide-open tour. John Dockery will be joined by Phil Liggett. They'll give you a full look at the excitement and intrigue of this third week of the Tour de France when Sports Sunday continues from France here.
Tour de France by the throat. It is time for America's hope to take charge of a race searching for a terminator. Hampston's first lieutenant, Raul Alcala, is now a threat to win himself. And Dag Otto Lorentzen has exploded onto the scene as 7-Eleven has taken the continent by storm. Irishman Stephen Roach is still the race favorite, but is the pressure eating away at his nerves? The yellow jersey, the rider with the best overall time, belongs to Charlie Motet of System U. But two-time Tour champion Laurent Fignon still leads the Tour's most dominant team. In the Pyrenees, the Tour de France turns from a bicycle race into a spectacle. A drama being played out before hundreds of thousands of spectators. Out of the shadows of these mountains, the upstart Colombians, led by Luis Herrera, have emerged as real contenders with the ability to dominate this race. The Pyrenees is the place to take the offensive.
I think people will be attacking. I think the Colombians will be pushing it. And I hope it explodes, but I hope I'm on the right exploding in.
Sports are proud to bring you the greatest bicycle race on earth. This is the Tour de France. Welcome to the stark beauty of Provence here in southern France, where today thousands are gathering for the most important race so far in this year's Tour. Hello, everybody. I'm John Dockery. And later this afternoon, right here on Mont Ventoux, the 164 survivors in this year's tour will face the test they dread the most. An individual time trial over 20 miles up this mountain, all alone against the clock. And later today, we're going to bring you same-day coverage of this grueling race, almost certain to produce those riders worthy of wearing the yellow jersey 1 week from today in Paris. This year's Tour de France started in Berlin, the most distant start ever for a tour. After 2 days of racing through the streets of the divided city and another 2 days in Germany, the tour came home, crossing the border into France at Strasbourg. From Strasbourg, the riders headed west across Champagne country, where scorching heat was a common enemy. But for Tour favorite Stephen Roach, his problem was not just the heat. It was also his team working hard in sizzling temperatures to protect the yellow jersey worn by Eric Mackler. After all, weren't they supposed to be working for Roach? The big surprise of the early going was Mexican cyclist Raul Alcala. Riding for the American team, he would be a valuable ally in Andy Hampston's bid for the yellow jersey. The tour then headed south, where Andy Hampston would face his first real test, an individual time trial. It was a disappointment, but still Hampston remained in contention. But he was no match for Irishman Stephen Roach, who solidified his status as the man to beat in this year's tour. 7-Eleven's Dag Otto Lorentzen was a surprise, placing much higher than expected, giving the American team another weapon in their growing arsenal. But when it was over, System U's Charlie Motet, with a second-place finish in the time trial, wore the yellow jersey because he had the best overall time thus far. Then it's south into wine country, where System U maintained control of the pack. Team leader Laurent Fignon had taken on a new role, the protector's role, on a team so dominant that it could put even a domestique like Marshall Guyant in the yellow jersey, if only for a day. In Bordeaux, the tour picked up speed, and a mad dash to the finish resulted in a serious crash. But out of the chaos came 7-Eleven's Davis Finney, with the only stage victory by an American to date, matching the one he earned last year. After Bordeaux, the riders see their first real mountains, first to the Pyrenees to test their mettle, and across the scorching plains of Provence. And then on into the Alps, where the men who would would-be champions separate themselves from those who simply ride bicycles for a living. From there, it's north to Paris and the finish, where the survivors will have completed their 2,524-mile journey in 26 days. And of the 207 riders who started in Berlin, a little more than half will see the finish in Paris, before hundreds of thousands of cheering fans. And the final sprint down the Champs-Élysées serves as an escort for the man in the yellow jersey, the man who has beaten them all in their wild journey across France. And the question this year is, who will be the successor to last year's champion, Greg LeMond?
Second catch, Little Rose.
The reconstructed 7-Eleven team can now boast 3 serious contenders capable of mounting the winner's platform in Paris. It's no longer just team leader Andy Hampston. It could also be Raul Alcala, the climber from Mexico. The talk around this year's tour is the growth of 7-Eleven. One expert told me earlier this week that 7-Eleven is now one of the top 7 cycling teams in the world, a quantum leap for the Americans.
Up on the top, and it rolls one, goes down a little.
The 2 Colombian teams, each with some of the best climbers in the world, hope to keep their singing going when the tour reaches the peaks of the Pyrenees and the Alps. But Stephen Roach still remains the most watched racer in this year's tour. The Pyrenees are next.
For the last 1,200 miles of the Tour de France, the people have lined the route expecting to see an obvious leader of the race, and it hasn't happened. You know, as we enter the Pyrenees, there are still at least 10 riders who can win this Tour de France. That hasn't happened perhaps in 40 years. You've always had an Eddy Merckx or a Bernard Hinault, or indeed last year's winner Greg LeMond, as obvious chiefs of the pack. Well, the Pyrenees normally are great levelers, but the way this Tour de France is going, it really could only add to the confusion of a very mysterious tour.
It's Bastille Day in the Basque capital of Po, gateway to the Pyrenees. The birds serve as a reminder, a warning, to abandon all hope, ye who have come to the Pyrenees. Because before there was a Bastille Day, and before there was a Tour de France, there were the swallows, and the mountains, and the mist. There's something in the air. It's also in the eyes of the riders. Is Stephen Roach saying hello or goodbye? It's a day when the yellow jersey on Charlie Motet's back seems so fragile, almost fading. And Jean-Francois Bernard, even more distant than usual, as France awaits his greatness. Luis Herrera, the lion of the mountains, eyes his prey. And Andy Hampston awakes to the nightmare which lies ahead. From Po, it's 103 miles over 2 major climbs to the mountaintop finish at Les Ardennes, a critical test for those expecting to win this year's Tour de France.
A lot of people are never scared. I'm going to follow everything today and see what happens, and then at the end, really open up.
And he's going very good also. I think he's just waiting for the moment to come.
You know, there's no excuses today. This is where it's going to happen.
So as the field rolled out of Po, it was clear what was in the minds of those who felt that they had a chance to win this year's Tour de France. This race without a dominant leader has given many the hope that this could be their year. The mountains that should confirm or destroy those hopes. Po is the gateway to the Pyrenees, which borders France with Spain, and the route last Tuesday weaved an evil thread as it climbed to the summit of the 5,600 feet Obisque mountain. From there it descended until the much-feared sting in the tail lifted the riders right back up to the same height and the finish at the ski station of Lutz Ardiden. But before both those climbs could be reached, the field had an hors d'oeuvre in the form of the Col du Tourmalet, a baby at a mere 3,400 feet. Davis Finney, winner of Bordeaux last Sunday, was soon attacking, hoping to make gains before the mountains began. While behind, the two Colombians, Wilches and Herrera, were being shadowed by Andy Hampsten, who feared them. Slopes of Marie Blanc are not high, but they sure are steep for Davis Finney. While at the top, two early escapers were leading them all. Tightly bunched together pack, all the favourites continued their nervous game of man marking man.
Finney continued to tire, but still made it across the top of Marie Blanche, the first major climb, with two more still to come. Finney led the pack by about a minute, and on his descent pursued the leaders. Behind, the main pack stayed together, with the stars keeping an eye on one another. Here, some of the riders took time to place a newspaper under their shirts to prevent sweat from turning to ice on their way down the mountain. The climb up Marie Blanche had not proved decisive.
So, with the favourites watching each other instead of attacking, Dag Otto Lauritsen takes his chance to try and recoup time lost the previous day, and he breaks clear to launch a 50 miles an hour pursuit of the men ahead. For the main field, the cold mist on the Marie Blanc at least forced them to keep warm on the descent, but as of yet there was no real interest in Lauritsen, Finney and the two Frenchmen up front. For Dag Otto Lauritsen, here was a chance to recover at least some of the 15 minutes he lost in the opening day in the Pyrenees, which dropped him from 5th to 20th overall. That is why men like Laurent Fignon, twice the winner of the Tour, and his group of race favourites, including Andy Hampsten, are not yet concerned by a man a long way behind on time. Instead, they are more content to watch each other's every move. Finney, tiring fast, has been caught by a few riders, and at the back, Lauritsen's inspired chase brings him towards the leaders on the road. And dancing onto the lower slopes of the Obisque mountain, Andy Hampsten controls the main group of riders, who still are unconcerned by the Lauritsen attack. After all, this climb goes on for 10 miles. But ahead, unfashionable Frenchman Thierry Claverola, who seeks only a single day's glory and who broke away at the start of the day with Davis Finney, was now ahead alone, trying to be the first over the Obisque. But behind, the Norwegian member of the American 7-11 team was building his confidence in a small group, and he looked good. But Davis Finney had lost his confidence and was gone. Who'll be first over the Obisque? We'll find out when we return.
Country Club plays host to the Buick Open next weekend on CBS Sports.
So it was Thierry Claverola, a man who has no chance of winning the Tour de France, who crosses the top of the Col d'Aubisque mountain first, to a great ovation from the French public. And chasing him up the climb was Dutchman Teun van Vliet, a man from the lowlands finding his wings in the Pyrenees. The Dutchman was excelling, and it was hurting as he chased Clavarola. But Lauritsen has been caught by all of the race favourites, including Andy Hampsten and Stephen Roach. And at the back, the yellow jersey can be seen of Charlie Motte. Ahead, Van Vliet has joined Clavarola. Now there are two in front. The leaders have crossed the summit, and the chase is on at 60 miles an hour. So the riders descend from the misty heights of the Obisque, and very shortly they'll face the climb up towards the finish at Lutz Ardiden. But having used his skill on a descent once before, Dag Otto Lauritsen moves ahead again with Thierry Clavarola, his next target. Lauritsen, riding with grim determination, catches the tiny Frenchman and then begins to concentrate on catching the Dutchman, Teun van Vliet, who is out front alone. Lauritsen, an Olympic bronze medalist in Los Angeles in 1984, was now on an inspired performance again. Suffering like never before, Van Vliet was trying to lead all the way to the mountain at Lutz Ardiden. It was his big chance to escape the favourites. But the chase behind by Lauritsen was merciless as he stoked up for the long pursuit in no man's land. He was behind the hound, but in front of the pack. Has raced only for 6 years, and the 27-years-old ex-Norwegian policeman only turned to cycling after an accident while parachuting almost left him a permanent cripple. Lauritsen's leg broke in mid-air when his parachute opened badly. Doctors said he would have a permanently stiff leg. They should see him now. Teun van Vliet was needing all the help he could get on the final climb towards the finish because the Norwegian was in determined mood. Until this year, Dag has raced only on European teams.